Good day, everyone. I'm Sam Robinson. I'm the CRO here at bookkeepers.com, and today we have a very special treat. We are joined by Chad Pues of Keeper. Now, for those of you who don't know, Keeper is a bookkeeper's best friend. It is the bookkeeping practice management tool, and it's made by bookkeepers for bookkeepers. So we're going to do a walkthrough today over how you can use this in your bookkeeping practice to help you manage your clients a lot more effectively. But before we do that, I just wanted to get a little bit of background on you, Chad, how you came into the scene and how you started here at Keeper.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for having me, Sam. Excited to share a little bit more about Keeper today. But to properly introduce myself, my name is Chad Pues. I'm an account executive here at Keeper, which is a fancy way of saying that I give product demos all day to firms interested in learning more. But I didn't always give product demos. I actually come from an accounting background myself, where I spent 10 years in public accounting and ultimately led and owned a accounting firm where we had about 150 monthly bookkeeping clients. At that time in 2022, we were looking for something that was going to add a little bit more structure and transparency and efficiency to our team, and we found Keeper, rolled it out at the firm, and it checked a lot of boxes for us, more than we originally anticipated. So I asked the Keeper team if I could join them and share it with other firms. So happy to say that I've been doing this for almost 3 years now, sharing Keeper with firms every single day.
Wow. So do you actually work with your original firm at all, or is it just all Keeper all the time now?
It's all Keeper all the time now, but we still keep in touch.
That's wonderful. That's awesome that software was so great that it made you jump from doing the accounting and bookkeeping to promoting their software. That's the best endorsement one can get. So I'm actually very interested to see this software of Keeper and how it can help the bookkeeper. So I think you have a little presentation for us. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. I'd love to jump in now, share my screen, and kind of walk through the ways that Keeper helps bookkeepers, whether they're just starting their business or whether they're an established firm with 10, 20 employees. So with that, let me find the share button here and make sure that I am sharing the right screen. Can you see the screen that says 1801 brands on it?
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Well, just to kind of set the table for what we're going to talk about today, our goal at Keeper is really to help bookkeeping teams bring as much of that recurring bookkeeping and accounting work into one piece of software so they're not having to jump between 3 or 4 apps to close their clients' books or use software that wasn't built specifically for bookkeeping to try and manage all of that work. So what we're going to talk about today are the ways that Keeper can add structure, transparency, and efficiency to your firm to help you know exactly what needs to get done each period, where the team's at, and make the team more efficient throughout that process. So what I've pulled up here and what we're looking at is what we call our client close page. In this example, we're looking at example client 1801 brands, looking at that March period. And this is really where you're defining and managing all of your work here in Keeper. So along the lines of providing structure, Keeper gives you the ability to define exactly what goes into that month-end close process in the form of task management. That can be customized in as much or as little detail as is needed, so you know exactly what needs to get done, and your team can follow along with the step-by-step that's documented here and complete those tasks along the way. But we're much more than just a traditional task management, project management software. A big value for Keeper is our direct integration with QuickBooks Online and Xero, because it allows us to do some pretty exciting things that the Asanas of the world, the Monday.coms of the world, that those are not able to offer. And we really start to see that integration here in the account reconciliation section. This is still borderline task management in that this is where you're defining for the team the list of client accounts that they're responsible for reconciling each period, but Keeper automatically looks at that chart of accounts and pulls in all the bank accounts and credit card accounts that we see there. And you've got the ability to pull in other client accounts here as well if you want to make sure that you're reconciling those on a monthly basis. We see more of that integration with QBO and Xero here by referencing the book balance at the end of the period, as well as a reference to the date of the transaction that was last reconciled in each of those accounts, so you know where you left off. And again, the team's going to be able to mark those tasks as complete as they progress through that work and attach any supporting documentation and work papers, so that way, again, you always understand how you arrive back at that month-end balance. So that was a little bit on the task management side of things, but where things get really exciting in Keeper is down here in our file review tools. The file review tools are intended to give the team the tools they need to self-review their own work and catch and correct coding errors without needing to jump into the ledger, dig around, identify and make changes there. Keeper's going to flag those for the team here. So I want to start with this easy one, transactions without payees does exactly what it sounds like. Flags for the team any of those transactions that have been accepted into the ledger without a vendor or payee assigned. You're able to make changes here one by one or in bulk for those changes to sync back to the ledger automatically. So what this means is now Keeper isn't just a place where you're tracking and managing their work. Now the team is able to review their work, make changes in the same place where they're doing that project management. So definitely a differentiator from a lot of the practice management software in the space today. We looked at that first one. That's an easy one. This next one's a little bit more exciting. Our expense and consistency report is giving teams the ability to identify potential coding errors that have been coded differently than how they've previously been recorded within that client file. So when Keeper finds one here, your team's going to be able to drill in, see that history for how it has historically been recorded. And based on that summary that Keeper's providing, your team's likely going to conclude that cost of goods sold is incorrect in this example. They can make that change to accounting and advertising per the history. And again, that syncs back to the ledger. And I think the big takeaway here is that these review tools make that review process something that you can delegate to lower level staff or new employees as your team size grows. It's a lot easier to have staff address the transactions that show up in these review tools than it is to try and train them on that traditional manual GL scan process that takes place in the ledger. So we've walked through a few of these file review tools here. There are a lot more. Before we talk a little bit about this one, this is going to be an important one. I want to look at one more. Our Prepare 1099s report is a really interesting one. I'm sure as soon as I say 1099s, the people on this call that are going to listen to this call are shivering as the reminder that 1099 season is approaching in the months ahead. This report makes that process easier for bookkeepers to stay on top of throughout the year. Now, we don't actually prepare the 1099s for you, but what we do is help you identify any client vendors that would hit that $600 year-to-date spend threshold, excluding credit card spend by default. So all year long, Keeper's pulling vendors into this report once they hit that threshold and bringing in any available vendor profile information that's already been saved in QBO or Xero, which makes it really easy for you to see when you're missing information related to those vendors. And if you aren't missing that information, you're able to request those W-9s through Keeper from the client or the client's vendor directly if you have an email on file for them. And when those files are received, you're able to reference those W-9s on screen, update that information based on what you see, check that important box if that 1099 is going to be necessary, save it, and all of that gets synced back to QBO and Xero. So it's in there for you at the end of the year. So this is just a incredibly valuable tool in being able to identify those potentially eligible vendors, collect and organize that information all year long, so the team's not scrambling to collect W-9s in December, January, et cetera, like I did for far too long. So very helpful tool here. I want to jump back up now in the close page and start to talk about client communication. One other place where Keeper adds efficiency to your month-end close process is with the client communication aspect. So for many firms and many teams, when they encounter transactions that they have questions on from clients, they're having to set those aside in some sort of holding account, maybe export that account detail to Excel, attach it to an email, send it to the clients, request clarification on the transactions, and then the client has to open up that spreadsheet, add their comments in the column to the right, save it, send it back. Everyone listening knows what that process is like. This tool is going to make that process much easier both for the team and for your clients, because you're going to be able to define those holding or suspense accounts where you're setting aside those transactions that you have questions on. Keeper's collecting those transactions here and then giving your team the opportunity to ask whatever question or questions they need to in order to get the clarification necessary. So your team is going to be able to add those questions to the client portal. Once they've added all of those questions to the portal, they can then push a notification via text message or by email that lets the client know that they've got open items there that requires their feedback, along with a unique link that's going to take that client directly to their client portal. So no traditional login screens with extra usernames and passwords, no required apps for anyone to download. We're using what are called Google Magic Links. So your clients are just going to click that link. The very first time they do so, they're going to be asked to authenticate their email address. But in the future, those links are going to take them to their portal, which could look something like this. So very easy for clients to get in here without the hoops and the hassles of some of those traditional client portals. And once clients are here, they're going to see your branding on this page. So your logo, colors throughout, your domain up top. So it feels like a true extension of your services. And they're going to see under that transaction questions tab, all of those questions that your team has been aggregating and putting into the portal for them, along with those transaction details, the question that was asked, And this is where the client is going to be able to provide those responses or attach files depending on that request without having to do that traditional back and forth via email that we just talked about. A couple other callouts here in the portal. We've also got a tab here for non-transaction questions. My old firm uses a lot for like recurring statement requests because you're able to schedule those requests to show up, for instance, on the first day of each month and begin to automate some of those requests rather than having to, again, email those period after period. Optional file storage here. If you want to make available to your clients any files that you've chosen to save in Keeper, they would be able to view, print, and download those here. And perhaps the most exciting tab here in Keeper is the financials tab. So for any financials that you've chosen to produce here in Keeper and then publish and share to your clients, those are going to be available to them here, not only as a PDF package for them to view, print, download, whatever they need to do with those, but we also have an interactive element here where for any graphs or visuals that you've built out for your clients, those are interactive here. So your clients can follow along with how their business is trending here from within the same portal. We've got an interactive profit and loss and balance sheet here. So that way clients can start to drill into these line items of their financials to see what vendors and payees make up those monthly balances and start to self-resolve some of their own questions without burdening the bookkeeping team. So definitely taking our integration with QBO and leveraging it for some more interactive elements, both through the financials and the transaction questions here. So I know that was a lot on the client communication side. Let's come back to the internal side of Keeper. So far, we've been looking at the close page for this one client, 1801 brands. We've been working through the tasks here, top to bottom. Often that last step is to prepare and share financial statements. We looked at a finished example that was published to the portal, but this is that report builder tab here where you're going to be able to actually customize those financials and choose what all goes into that financial statement package. So a lot of customization here before that ever gets shared with clients. And again, we've been talking about one client, this 1801 brands client. I want to zoom out now and take a look at the firm as a whole. This screen here is the first screen that teams are going to see when they access Keeper. And it's the screen that drove my firm to come to Keeper in the first place and drives many to come to Keeper. Because for many, more than anything else, they need that high level visibility to see where they're at across all of that client work at any given time. And this is the dashboard that's going to give it to them. It's going to list those clients of theirs here on the left, indicate those team members assigned in the different roles on those engagements, assuming some level of handoff, the close or the period that the team is currently working on. And then out here to the right is an indication of the progress that the team is making as they progress through those different sections of the close page that we just looked at. But you've got the ability to drill into these cells, see what's been done versus what remains open, so you know where the team's at all times. And firms have that same visibility for any of those open items that remain in the client portal as well. So they'll be able to see all of those open items here rather than needing to page back through weeks and weeks of emails to see what's been asked, what's been answered, or loop in a bunch of team members. All of that is visible here from this dashboard as well. So you know it's still pending in those pending requests from those clients. So we've just walked through Keeper's core components that are helping bookkeepers today to bring structure into their practice in the form of task management, visibility and transparency through the dashboard here to know where the team's at, and then efficiency through both the review process in our file review tools, as well as the client communication side through the client portal. Those four core pillars have been the reason why over 5,000 firms have chose Keeper today. But I want to share a little something that we've been working on that is going to bring even more firms to Keeper in the future. And this is where we start to look at some of Keeper's AI functionality. So this feature here is currently in beta. We're recording this on September 4th. So hopefully by the end of this month, this will be live for everyone. But as a little teaser here, I want to introduce you to Keeper's bank feeds. Everyone is aware that QBO pushed new bank feed interface and updates to users without any sort of consent. And the feedback has been that, well, it's adding a lot more clicks and making people less efficient. We're not going to wait for Intuit to get that right. Instead, we're going to produce our own bank feeds here in Keeper. What's special about our bank feeds and different from QBO is QBO is still giving bookkeepers a single table of transaction data pulling through from those bank accounts and credit card accounts. We're going to be able to establish those connections to those accounts here, but instead of a single table of transaction data, we're using AI to separate those transactions into several different buckets to reorganize that bank feed and make it easier and more efficient for teams to go through. So just quickly walking through some of these buckets here. Matches, of course, are any transaction matches that you would find in either bank feed. Rules are transactions that are covered by rules that you've established here in Keeper. So as an example, I've got 26 Uber transactions here that are all covered by a rule that I've established. I can click post and post all 26 in one click rather than having to click accept, accept, accept all the way down the page. So a lot of time savings with that. This auto classifications bucket leverages some of our traditional review tool logic, identifying how transactions have historically been recorded within the client file and saying, okay, historically we've recorded United as travel, but we're feeling extra confident in this because we can also verify using our AI to go to the internet, confirm that United is an airline. So we're comfortable making that recommendation here for the team to post that to the ledger as well. And then lastly, any transactions that are going to need a little bit more review, the team's going to be able to review here and reference any AI reasoning that Keeper provides to consider before posting it to the ledger or making requests or asking questions from clients as well. So this is the first look into Keeper's newest AI initiative with our bank feeds. I'm really excited about this because the early reports have been that this is saving a ton of time in the bank feed categorization process. So excited for everyone to get their hands on it. But at this point, Sam, I've done quite a bit of talking. I've covered the major components of Keeper that I wanted to introduce to everyone now. So would love to turn it back to you for any questions that maybe you have and to go from there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that presentation, Chad. Just getting to see the Keeper app more up close and personal, and also getting to see that AI feature that's in beta. I can't wait for that to roll out. I can see a lot of our Bookkeeper launch people and any other bookkeepers really finding a lot of use from that. So I don't have any questions presently. I think you did a very fantastic job walking us through that.
Thank you.
So thank you for joining us today, Chad, and everyone of you in the audience there. Where can we find you? Keeper.app, is that the correct website?
That is the correct website. Yeah, a lot of similar sounding names out there. We are Keeper.app. App. Folks can email me if they want to learn more about Keeper. It's chad@keeper.app. And I'd be happy to set up individual demos to understand what firms are looking for and share the ways that Keeper may be able to help.
Absolutely. And I will link that below as well. I request, guys, that you like, subscribe, comment. It helps us out. It helps bookkeepers.com out. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Till next time.